Thank you for the lovely introduction. It's way out of date. In the past, I had an academic career, and I was chief medical officer and in charge of training young doctors how to be doctors, medical students into be doctors. But really, what I didn't like was the fact that as I went up in the organization, I just ran meetings, and it didn't feed my soul. What I am at my core is a problem solver, and I like solving real problems. I like doing hard things. And so that's the position that I'm coming from in today's talk, because what I am is a primary care physician. And I sit across from people 5 days a week, I listen to their stories and solve problems. I like the topic, I picked it, so there's that, but I like the topic because it's really up and coming right now. I mean, it's like blowing everybody, in terms of the research, blowing up. Let me go to the first slide here. There's a paradigm shift around microbiome, the concept of microbiome and how important it is. And what we know now, because research has shown us, is it is a lot more important than we thought. It turns out the healthy functioning of our body depends on the microbiome functioning well. That's a bold statement, and I'll stand by it. That is, in fact, what's happening. Now, the problem with that is hardly anybody knows what to do about it. We all know it's important, but in the research, they don't know how to fix it. I assure you, they don't. But I do. For real. So sometimes primary care gets ahead of research, and this is one of those times. So y'all are going to get a treat here. You can actually learn how to fix your microbiome for real. And the reason why I know how to do this is because I have to know how to do it. I got all kinds of sick people coming to see me, and in order to get them better, I got to fix their microbiome. Like, for real, I got to figure out some way to get this thing going. I'm getting way ahead of myself. I'm giving you the end of the talk before I get to the beginning of the talk. So let me just see if there's anything I'm missing here. Oh, yeah. I looked it up today because I said, well, I'm going to tell you there's been a lot of research. They're going to want to know how much. I wish I could have stole that little graph off of the PubMed, because it shows that exponential curve where it just shoots up like a rocket. That's what we're looking at with microbiome research. Last year, they had 38,837 submitted articles on this subject. So lots of time and energy and money is going into this thing. People are hoping to eventually figure out how to, solve problems and cure diseases, but more than that, to actually make money on this thing. Okay, so we're going to spend some time with this slide. Oh, by the way, I should explain this thing. I broke my shoulder in a bike accident. It was my own fault, 100%. I was racing BMX bikes, if you can believe that, against young people. I had a 14-year-old in front of me. And the number one rule of BMX biking is don't crash. And I forgot. I can't be temporarily insane. I thought the number one rule of BMX biking is I have to pass the guy in front of me. And so I took the inside turn on a corner, which usually you can get ahead of somebody. And it was a little soft from all the rain, and I did this little stutter thing and went over the handlebars and broke my shoulder. But not to worry, the surgery's scheduled tomorrow morning. For real. Dr. Carey's doing the surgery. It's a loose bone here. Every once in a while you'll see me wince. That's because it moves. It feels like I have a loose bolt in my shoulder right now. And I had a more elaborate setup to keep it from moving around, but it turns out this is the best. I tried different kinds of things. This is one that works best. They're gonna bolt me back together. The good thing is, I'm just gonna get my own case here. He said we're gonna use these teeny little screws, and we're gonna screw the tip back on. Normally they don't. It's a clavicle bone is what it is. Normally they don't repair a clavicle. They just let it repair itself. But the break I have is right at the end, and it snapped it off at a weird angle. And so he said, we can let it heal on its own, but you'll never lift your arm up again. So if we can set that in there and then brace it, the problem is there's not that much bone in that particular bone. It's real thin, paper thin. And so he may have to bridge it, and then if that's the case, he'll have to run a piece of metal all the way across to the outside. And then in, 2-3 months, they'll take that piece of metal out, and then I'll have my shoulder back. So I'm just trying to shorten the rehab. If I let it do what it's doing right now, it'll eventually set. The body doesn't like loose bones. It'll pin it down, but it'll pin it in a weird angle. And then I think I could fix it. I think given 2-3 years worth of steady PT, I could get it to go back. But that's another story. Okay, let's talk about the microbiome health effects. I don't want to go through every single one of them, but I'm going to go slow on this slide because I really want to talk about this. You get some sense of what the approach is to these various illnesses. Let's just start with gastrointestinal. It makes sense we'd start with gastrointestinal because we're talking microbiome. You know, the microbiome is not only in the gastrointestinal system. There's some in your mouth, there's vaginal, nose, skin, it's all over your body. But the gastrointestinal part is the most important, is the most significant part when you're looking at general diseases and those kind of things. Anyways, inflammatory bowel disease is when the lining of the bowel becomes inflamed, falls apart, and bleeds. So Crohn's disease, Crohn's disease is not just the bowel, it's also the lower half of the small intestine. But and regardless, what you do is it falls apart and it bleeds. And so what's the treatment here? In order to fix this, I have to make an apology. I'm going to sound like an egomaniac. I know, I can hear it in my own voice. I'm going to tell you how I can fix things that nobody else can fix. I'm not bragging. I'm just literally describing what I do. This Crohn's disease thing and ulcerative colitis, they're in my pocket. I know how to fix them. I haven't had a fail yet in all the people that I've ever treated. Every single time people come in, I fix them. And how I fix them is this. In order to get those diseases to repair, you have to shut down the inflammation on the lining of the intestines. In order to do that, you have to change the environment there. The disease is a result of the dysbiosis. That's the reason. Now, if you look at the normal treatment, what they do is they put them on very strong anti-inflammatories. If there's somebody's bleeding, they'll typically start with prednisone, and it works beautifully. It's fabulous. But then people fall apart because inflammation is how we heal. So we don't want to shut down inflammation. We need inflammation. So if you give someone prednisone, you leave them on it, they eventually, the cure is worse than the disease. So when we get to the end, I'll talk about how you actually fix the whole thing, but that is the objective is to correct the microbiome. Now, irritable bowel syndrome, can you even see this? This is like the weakest pointer I've ever had. Irritable bowel syndrome is a weird condition where you get cramping and you get urgency to stool and you get stomach pain, and it kind of comes, somewhat randomly. You got to go into it and out of it. It's a life wrecker. It is. It's like your guts don't work right. You don't die, but you can't really live either. It's one of those kinds of things, and it's a lesser version of the inflammatory bowel disease. Gastric ulcers, for a long time, was thought was caused by stress. When I was younger, we all knew it was caused by stress. Turns out it's not. It's caused by bacteria. It's a bacterial infection by Helicobacter pylori. And then small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. This is an interesting condition. It's kind of got a buzzword now. When people come up with it, like, wow, I got this thing. I got small intestinal bacterial overgrowth disease, SIBO. And it turns out that SIBO is just a made-up name. Turns out it's the same as everything else. All these are the same. There's really no significant difference in terms of the treatment for all of them. They come out exactly the same. And again, I'm tempted just to go into the treatment and tell you how to fix them, but we'll do that eventually. Let's talk about obesity. Obesity is interesting because they're doing lots of research on mice, because mice you can do research on. They have short lifespans. If you have to cut one open, it's better than working on people. And there's a lot in common between mice and people. And what they've discovered is if they take the bacteria, the collection of bacteria, the microbiome in fat mice and put it into skinny mice, the skinny mice turn fat. And if you take the microbiome in skinny mice and you put it in fat mice, and then the fat mice turn thin. And they thought, oh, this is great. We're going to make money on this one for sure, right? But in people, it has not worked out so well because they don't know how to actually do it. What they would do is they would give you a super strong antibiotic, kill all your bacteria, and then take the bacteria from somebody who's slender and then re-inoculate you with this called a fecal transplant. And for people to lose weight, it's not enough of a motivation to do this. I mean, that's a pretty invasive thing, right? I mean, you think about how do they do this fecal transplant? It involves a blender and making your own pills. Seriously, you make poop pills. Either that or you make a slurry and then you inject it right up their rectum. That's the better way to do it. That's a more direct way to do it. I know because I did the training to learn how to do this. In case I have ever had a case that I needed to do a fecal transplant on, I never have. Never had to do it once. Everything we're doing works well enough that I never had to result to a fecal transplant. Anyways, type 2 diabetes. We're going the wrong way here. Metabolic syndrome and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Let's skip some of these things because the type 2 diabetes and metabolic syndrome fit in the obesity thing in terms of the conversation. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. This is an interesting disease because people who guzzle booze get fatty livers. We already know that. But some people get fatty livers that don't guzzle booze. So they call it non-alcoholic. And this is blowing up. Some of you in here have this, I assure you. It's a disease that right now, if you look worldwide, a quarter of the people in the world have this. Adults, not kids, but a quarter of the adults in the world have it. If you look in the United States, it's almost 60% of Hispanic people have this disease. Isn't that amazing? Those are high numbers. And what's causing it is irritation. It's too vague of a word. Toxins, let's just call it what it is, from the digestive system are being funneled to the liver, and they're damaging the liver in such a way to make it grow fat. Let me describe this more so you can get a sense of how I think. First of all, you have to understand the anatomy. Imagine I'm a liver cell. On one side of me is a capillary. On the other side of me is a bile duct. And these are set up in tubes. So there's a me, and then there's a me on top, and a me over there, and me, and we're all sitting around this tube. But each one of us around this tube have this capillary that goes in front. So our job is to reach down into the capillary, pull stuff out, and give it a hard look, and say, I wonder what we should do with this. And then modify it. If it's nasty, we're going to pitch it into the bile duct so that it goes down the sewer. If it's fine, we just put it back in and let it go on through. Some of the stuff just needs to be modified. So we're sitting, everything coming in on this side from the capillary system is coming from the digestive system first. So the liver cells get first pass on anything that goes by from the digestive system. So if you got bad bugs, what those bugs be doing? They're going to be eating stuff, taking what they want, and pooping out what they don't want. Why don't they want it? Because it's nasty. It's the same thing we do. Everything on the planet does this. It's not like it's anything different. We're all doing the same thing. We eat stuff, we take what we want, we poop out what we don't want. Except for out, there's no out. This is all in. This is all taking place right in here. And so it gets absorbed, some of it, not all of it. Some of it gets trapped by fiber, but some of it gets absorbed, comes on up, and is nasty bits. Now, if there's a nasty bit or two, that liver cell's got the capacity to break it down or to add a little tag to it, pitch it in the bile and get rid of it, and do this whole thing where it cleans your blood. Your liver's one of the organs in your body primarily that's involved in cleaning blood. But if it's coming in thick and fast, it can't keep up. So what it does is it takes that toxic chemical, because it can't do anything with it, and it puts it someplace safe. What it does is it generates this little garbage can over on the side out of lipids, mostly cholesterol. And that is a safe place to take these chemicals and drop it in. And they just go bury right into the little fat blob. And we're going to take it out later. And we're going to process it later when there's not so much crap, that's the correct word, floating by. Except for later, for some people, never comes. Never comes. There's more badness happening. And so the body will lay down more of this cholesterol, more of these lipids down here. Turns out the fatty liver, the fat isn't the problem. It's the solution. It's how we're fixing it. So heaven forbid, if you ever went on a diet and flushed all that fat out of your liver, you're in for a bruising. So in order to fix this, we got to decrease the amount of toxic stuff that's coming in from the digestive system. Now, again, it's so hard for me to just tell you how to fix it. And let me go out of sequence. Let me just tell you how to fix it. Here's how you fix it. It turns out that bacteria live on food. Without food, they can't live. So what they're living on is leftovers. So if you don't digest it, someone else will. So the way the system's supposed to work is you eat food, you bite it, you chew it up, you swallow it, then your stomach releases acid, and your pancreas releases digestive enzymes, and your gallbladder releases bile, and there's lots of squishing involved, and everything gets churned, and it breaks down, and then the cells that line your small intestine absorb it. They pull it in, they pull it in, they pull it in. There's acres of surface area, and lots of folds and the villi and all the way the cells work, and I'm leaving details out, but they absorb, absorb, absorb. So in the end, by the time that food reaches the lower part of the small intestine, there should be nothing left, no nutrients, nothing. Every single thing should be absorbed with the exception of stuff that we can't digest. So things like pebbles, wood chips, little bits of plastic, and fiber. Soluble fiber and insoluble fiber. So the wood chips and plastic is the insoluble fiber, right? And then, or seed, husk, stuff like that. But the soluble fiber is cellulose and other kinds of fibers that are naturally occurring in foods that give it structure a lot of times. And that is what we cannot digest. We do not have the enzymes to digest. Yet there's calories in that stuff. So how it works is the beneficial bacteria break down the soluble fiber. They release short-chain fatty acids and other things that we like to eat. And so we absorb these things. So how it works is they come out ahead because they have a warm, wet, safe place to hang out, and they take the stuff that we can't digest and they convert it into stuff that we can burn for calories. And this is not a little bit we're talking here. This is a lot. If you got somebody living on, a caveman diet, lots and lots of fiber, about 20% of their caloric intake comes from the fermentation of soluble fiber. 20%. That's the difference between starving and not starving. That is extremely significant. Now, I don't want to make over-exaggerate it, though, because a moose lives on 100% of that fermentation. And cows do, too. I mean, there's a lot of animals who are way better at doing this than we are. We're particularly inefficient about how we do it. And yet, in our inefficient way, we still need those calories. The thing is, the lining of our colon depends on the availability of short-chain fatty acids. If short-chain fatty acids are available, the lining of our colon is happy, it's healthy, it's well-adjusted, it functions well, it does exactly what it needs to do. And if the short-chain fatty acids are not available, it gets irritable, it gets thin, it suffers damage, it's much more likely to generate these diseases on the list here. I just explained why all of these are happening. It's because of what a thing I just told you right now. Let me say it again because it's important enough. Our bodies supply the basic materials to our microbiota. There's a microbiome and microbiota. Microbiota are the organisms, microbiome is the organisms, and the system as a whole, including the genetics. I'm not talking about the system as a whole. I'm talking about the bugs, the specific bugs. They are fed by us, by what we eat. And they break that stuff down and they make things we need. Not only the short-chain fatty acids, that's the tip of the iceberg, bunches of other stuff too. And what they do is they keep the cells that line our colon happy enough where they don't get cancer. So if they're unhappy, they're much more likely to get cancer. Not only that, if they're unhappy, they're more likely to leak. And then all kinds of nastiness from inside the digestive system gets into the bloodstream and wreaks havoc. And so this is one of the main routes of Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease and autism. The number one most important element to whether people are going to get autism or not is what their gut bacteria are. Interesting, isn't it? Who'd have thunk? Really, Dr. Luper? I thought it was genetics. No, it's not, I assure you. Genetics has very little to do with autism. Gut bacteria have more to do with it. So why are all these diseases blowing up? Remember we got off on this non-alcoholic fatty liver disease that's just blowing up. There's just like, the rates are going up skyrocketing high. The reason why is because our microbiome is going to hell in a handbasket. It's not running well. Anybody want to venture guess why? Larry? Yeah, exactly. Duh. Because the problem is feeding these guys. Here's the thing. If you don't send undigested food down the line, there's nothing for the bad bugs to live on. They can't eat. Now, okay, right, it's impossible. Occasionally there's going to be a bit of underdone potato, right? I'm thinking of Christmas Carol, whatever the ghost thing. Anyway, there's going to be some things that aren't digested, and so they're going to live on the occasional crumb. But if you send lots of food down in a regular basis, like daily, then you're going to feed those guys, and they're going to grow and grow because there's something to eat. Duh, that's how it works. That's the problem right there. I just told you, I did the whole talk. That's it. You send undigested food down, and you're going to feed the bad bacteria. You quit sending undigested food down, and the bad bacteria, they don't grow. They have to shrink. Okay, let me give you a perfect example, and I'll go back to my talk here. I love pizza. It's just this comfort food. It's a fabulous food. You know, the crust and the cheese and the whole thing, it just makes me happy. And then when I turned 25, I found I could no longer eat a whole pizza in one sitting without getting heartburn. It was the end of my life as I knew it. I mean, I grieved that, by the way. It's funny because I'm so far from that now. Right now, the only place I can eat pizza and get away with it, and I don't own any stock in this company, so I'm just going to say the name, is East Ramp. At the airport, they have these teeny little pizzas with super thin crust, and they have fabulous toppings, and they do it right. And I can eat that because the crust is so low. Because if you think about pizza, what is pizza? It's carbohydrates. It's a carbohydrate disc mixed with greasy cheese and undigestible bits of meat. So talk about gut balm. That is the perfect gut balm to not be digested when you eat it, because it's all got this grease in it. First of all, it's delicious and rich with calories. Exactly what the bad bacteria want to eat, exactly. And it's covered with grease. So the enzymes come in, they bounce off. They can't get in. And so it's undigestible. What you'll say, whoa, Dr. Luper, what about bile? Bile will emulsify those fats. Yes, you are right. It will, but it slows the process down. It doesn't take place immediately. It's slow, because now you're further down the pipe, and it's harder to get to it. And if you're not making the right amount of bile, and heaven forbid you get a little older, like you get to 25 now, and you can't digest a whole pizza anymore. So it doesn't digest. And then pepperoni. Pepperoni is an amazing thing. You can take pepperoni and leave it on the counter for like a month. It doesn't even rot. So there it is. You were feeding the bad bacteria. Now, I can't eat a whole one of those little pizzas. What I have to do is I have to cut it into slices and eat a quarter. Unless I throw caution to the wind, I'll eat that extra little eighth. Then the rest of it I have to throw away. I can't eat it. I can't take it home, because if I do, because even though I don't want to eat much of that pizza, it's still hard to digest. And I'm getting older. See, that's the problem here. It's hard to digest, and I still send some extras down. And then I feed my bad bacteria, and they grow. And the next day, they grow one day. It doesn't take weeks. It takes one day. And they grow. And now I have a bomb ready to blow up in my gut if I send more pizza down. The cold pizza on the next day, that's what blows me up. Now, if I don't eat that cold pizza, and I don't eat any more pizza or anything like pizza, I starve the guys. Even though they're grown up, they have nothing to eat, and they go back down again. I get away with eating pizza and not get heartburn. Otherwise, I suffer. So if some of you in here get heartburn, I hope you're taking notes, because I just told you how to not get heartburn. Let me repeat it. Don't allow any undigested food get to your lower intestine. The heartburn comes from the fermentation of available food. Those little buggies, they eat it, they make bubbles. And there's millions of them, and they make millions of bubbles. What's millions of bubbles called? Foam. Foam is the word. And what foam does, it comes on up. And when it goes to the stomach, it picks up an acid tang. And then it pushes up against that little sphincter, the cardiac sphincter up at the top of the stomach. And when you push against that sphincter, it opens up. It has a safety release valve to let the bubbles out so that we don't blow up and get bloat like the cows do, right? The cows just fall over and die because they don't have the sphincter like we do. And we just burp it up. Or it comes out at night when we're laying down, and now we're getting heartburn. So the heartburn system runs on fermentation. Now, this is interesting because you think for a second, wait, Dr. Luper, I have heartburn, and I take this little pill, and my heartburn goes away because the pill blocks my acid production. And you're right. You're still making the bubbles, just like you were before, as long as you're eating pizza or stuff like that, but the bubbles don't pick up an acid tang in your stomach anymore. It just comes up and you get regular bubbles. Now, true, when you do lay down at night, the bubbles are coming up in your throat and you're breathing them in, so your risk of pneumonia is much higher than the general population. You also have a higher risk for digestive infections. You also have higher risk for inflammation in general. You also have a higher risk for osteoporosis. There's a bunch of other stuff that comes from having that acid blocker. So the acid blocker is a bonehead way to solve the problem, because the problem is undigested food getting down to the lower intestine. Not that I have an opinion about this. Undigested food. What's acid do? Helps with digestion. And when you're taking those little pills, what you're doing is you're blocking your acids, so you're weakening your digestion, and you're making this problem worse. You see where I'm going with this? This is the problem. This is the problem. The problem is we live in a world, our society, where undigestible food abounds. It is what's mostly available. We have to go out of our way to get food that's easy to digest. Anything in a box is processed in some way, with rare exception, to make it undigestible, because digestion is rotting. If it will rot, then it's digestible, except for if it's rotten, you can't buy it. So if you're going to, in the business selling food, you got to make it where it won't rot. You have to, you're required to, otherwise you can't be in business. It's just a necessity. So here's what I tell my patients. I say, I want you to only eat food that will rot, but hasn't yet rotted. You live in this narrow little slip in time, because if it won't rot, don't eat it. And if it is rotten, don't eat it. That's how to solve this problem. That's why people get better. I mean, it's pretty much they do what I say because they're motivated, right? Because they have some kind of disease. All right, I told you I'm going off the talk. I'll come back to some of these things and fill out some of the little details that I missed. But that's the gist of it right there. I just gave it to you. Okay, so let's talk about autoimmune disease. We got allergies, asthma, rheumatoid arthritis, and psoriasis. These are caused by our immune system overreacting to things. Our immune system gets hyper-reactive, hypersensitive, and generates a reaction. Now, the reaction we're looking at with these is the white blood cells have these packets of poison in them that they use them to kill things, and what they do is they let the packets of poison go. Now, what triggers that generally is antibodies. And so if we get antibodies are these little proteins that have this little kind of a protein shape that attaches to things. And it's designed to attach to foreign material mostly. Sometimes there's some crossover. And what it does is it attaches as attachment side and then has a flag side. The flag side whips vigorously and says, kill this, right here, this thing here. This is what you need to kill, this thing. And the white blood cells go by and go, what? We're supposed to kill this thing. And they dump their chemicals, and they kill whatever that thing is. Now, if it's a virus, yay. If it's a bacteria, yay, inside your body where it shouldn't be. If it turns out to be connective tissue, no. Ooh, this is bad. So the way this is treated, again, we go back to this anti-inflammatory, is people take anti-inflammatories. We're back to prednisone, which, cortisone was the one that was first used, and it was touted as a cure for arthritis, because people took cortisone and arthritis went away. But then within a year, they fell apart. And so they don't even use it anymore. What they use now is Humira, which is a biological that blocks an aspect of the immune system and shuts it down. Now, they do warn you that if you get an infection, your chance of dying of infection is higher. But you have to make a choice whether you may die from this weird infection or you're going to suffer every day from with arthritis. So the vast majority of people go for the medication. Also, it's really expensive, makes a lot of money. But it's putting a Band-Aid on the problem but without fixing the problem, because the question is, where do these antibodies come from? And the answers are coming primarily from your digestive system. They're coming from the irritation that's happening on the cellular level. It's loosening the cells. I'm going to quit talking about this one because I had a better slide that'll show this. It's loosening the cells and letting things leak in. And you get this leakiness where hunks and chunks of undigested things get into general circulation, and our immune system makes antibodies to those hunks and chunks, and due to just bad luck more than anything else, those hunks and chunks react with some part of our body. If they react to our connective tissue, we call it rheumatoid arthritis. If it reacts to our thyroid, we call it Hashimoto's disease or Graves' disease. If it reacts to our kidney, we call it lupus. If it reacts to our skin, we call it scleroderma. If it reacts to whatever, there's names for everything, depending on what it reacts to, but they're all the same. They're all the same illness, and they're all related to the microbiome going bad. Okay, I mentioned some of these neurological diseases already. Parkinson's has a definite inflammatory aspect. I'm going to use my whole time talking about these. I'm going to have to skip some of these. Let me pick, okay, I'll do Parkinson's. Let me do Parkinson's, then I'm going to skip the rest of the list. Parkinson's happens when our dopamine production drops off in our brain. Dopamine gives us steadiness and coordination. And without that dopamine, people get that tremor, and they get unsteady where they can't walk. They take these little teeny little steps. And anyways, the fundamental problem is dopamine. So the doctors, they figured this out a long time ago. What they do is they can't give dopamine directly because they can't get through the blood-brain barrier. And so they give L-DOPA, and then the L-DOPA gets through, and then the body converts L-DOPA to dopamine. But the system doesn't run that well. So you could do a lot to help early Parkinson's, but late Parkinson's is very, very difficult to treat. But the key thing here is dopamine production. So if you can reduce the damage to the cells that make dopamine in the brain, there's part of the brain is called the substantia nigra. It's funny, substantia nigra. Nigra meaning black. So you cut somebody's brain open, there's a little black spot. And you think, wow, why is it black? It's black because of oxidative damage. So if you got toxins coming in, adding to the oxidative damage that comes inherently from the metabolism that the brain's having to do to generate the dopamine, you're going to start killing dopamine-producing cells at a higher rate. So all of us, every single one of us in this room, have lost these dopamine-producing cells as we age. The thing is, are we going to lose them fast enough to where we hit Parkinson's, or are we going to die of something else first? Most of us die of something else first. But if we live long enough, this will pop up because all of us get damage from this. So if you can get the digestive system working better, you can cut the production of toxins down, what, by half, 3/4, 90%, depending on how far you're willing to take it. So it turns out to be a very important strategy to be able to help with Parkinson's. The other thing is, with Parkinson's, I'm off subject a little bit on this one, but I have to tell you, is why don't we just make more dopamine? Because you can. How do you make dopamine? You take dopamine precursors, tyrosine, you convert it into dopamine. That's what you do. It all depends on blood flow. And so what you do is you increase blood flow. Turns out the number one most powerful treatment for Parkinson's is exercise. Exactly what they can't do. Because remember I told you, they can't move. They're in a catch-22 because they can't move, and yet movement is the thing that helps them. So there's a doctor who wanted to publicize Parkinson's. So he took his Parkinson's patient and put him on a tandem bike, two of them riding together. And they went from small town to small town and gave talks. Within 10 days of them setting out, the Parkinson's patients didn't have Parkinson's anymore. It went away because he was riding his bike from town to town. The exercise cured him. So I heard that and I thought, oh, this is great. I got to do this. So my next Parkinson's patient came in, was basically, he couldn't do anything. He was a painter. He probably got toxic fumes that made it worse. Anyways, I got him walking on a treadmill for an hour and a half every day. And within, I'd say about 8 weeks, he was back to playing golf. And he was fine. You couldn't tell he had Parkinson's. Not everybody gets that kind of response. He was just determined. A lot of times what I get to do is I get to watch people get better, not because I made it get better, just because I'm a witness. I pointed him in the right direction, and he needed something to do, and I gave him something to do, and dang, did it ever work. It worked really well. Okay, let's look at, I'm sorry, if we want to come back to some of these things later, you should remember in your mind that you want to talk about it, and we will, but let's just go on with the next slide. Okay, back to the gut microbiome. Like, what is this microbiome? Well, a lot of the researchers are just trying to figure out what are the organisms that constitute the microbiome so that they can create a probiotic and fix it. I mean, it seems that's an obvious way to fix this, right? Figure out what bugs you need and put them in a pill, and then you take it. Then you're fixed. I'm sorry. It doesn't work. And we'll see why. It doesn't work. Anyways, but there's 5,000 different species. But for all of us in here, if you actually checked our gut, it'd be about 1,000. Now, what's happening is, I talked about this calorie extraction thing already. I made that point. Here's another thing, is if you have a healthy microbiome, they won't allow pathogenic organisms to take up residence in you because there's no space. There's a space limit. And what they do is they literally, they take the space up. So there's no hole for any other organisms to fill in. And so it turns out to be a thing. I mean, it's like it's real. It actually helps, for real. So we want to take care of our microbiome like a gardener would take care of his garden. You want to think, as you're eating something, is this good for my garden? Right? And so if it turns out something you just absolutely love, don't eat much. You can get by with a little bit of poison as long as it's really teeny tiny. Remember the pizza story? I had to figure out my small dose that I could tolerate, so I'm throwing my guts off. And things like that. Alcohol is another good example. Alcohol is not good for your guts. I'll tell you right now. It's not. I mean, it's good for people, in general, people who drink alcohol tend to be slightly more healthy, than the general population. But alcohol is not good for your guts at all. It's all about moderation, about dose. So anyways, we want to help these bugs. We'll go into this more later, but we want to get it to where the pathogenic organisms can't attack us. The diversity of microbiomes going down in Western societies. I talked about why dysbiosis or microbiome illness kind of stuff is increasing. What about this one? It's not immediately obvious, or maybe it is. Why do you think our diversity is going down? These are bugs. Yeah. Well, that's it. I would say, you're talking about what we do to make it grow more. I'd say what we're doing to knock them down. This was real straightforward. This is antibiotics. So we take antibiotics, when we get infected, and what the antibiotics do is they kill our bugs off. Not completely. Doesn't eradicate bugs from our system. In fact, a lot of times the bugs come back robustly, but not always. Sometimes you don't have many, and there's just a few, and then you eradicate it, and there's none to get. And so over time, we lose the diversity. Now, a lot of the diversity that we have comes from our family and our friends and our loved ones, and even people we don't know, because we all are sharing organisms back and forth all the time. Now, if you wash your hands, you're going to be doing it less so, but in some ways you're losing out, because if you get tiny little inoculations in you and the environment is correct in you, it makes you more robust. It makes your microbiota stronger. So this thing where we're striving always to be clean all the time has its advantages, and it has its disadvantages. The advantages, it's a lot less common to get, Shigella than it was before, or whatever, the horrible killer diseases. The ones in the top of my head is not coming out yet. Anyways, things like that. COVID, right? There's no one. But we lose out on the diversity. So it's important for us to go out and, dig in the dirt and pet animals and, kiss our children and things like that. So we get this cross contamination that builds us up and makes us stronger. Okay, next slide. Since there's thousands of them, I'm not going to talk about thousands of them. This one could kill my talk and just completely fill up the whole talk, and I won't let it. I just want to go through some of the key ones here. And they're in no special order. Lactobacillus is one that was most famous. It's in probiotics. It's a thing we know about already. There's a lot of publicity about lactobacillus. It's not really one of my favorites. It's not one of the ones I use much myself to be able to help people. It's worth mentioning. I'll have a story. In fact, let me just tell you right now. There's one right here. This one, Lactobacillus plantarum. The interesting story about this one is there was a surgeon in Finland who was sick of his patients dying. Because what happens when you get major surgery is you can get this cascade of organ failure. They call it multi-system cascading organ failure, and your patients die. And for no reason, the Surgery was very good, very competent. It's the recovery period that they die in. And so he didn't want his patients to die of this anymore. So what he did, because he was a clever fellow and he was living in Finland, is he had all his patients eat fermented oatmeal before they got surgery. And just because, you know, his grandma ate it or something, he had some kind of intuition that this would be the thing that would help. And what happened is the number of patients that died of this multisystem organ failure went to 0. And people noticed. And so they thought, what the heck is going on with this oatmeal? And so they investigated the oatmeal, and they found this was the organism. This one had this ability to calm down the lining of the digestive system that was taking this huge stressful hit from the surgery, calm it down and keep the integrity of it, keep the cells together to where they don't break apart. When those cells break apart, it forms these gaps where stuff comes in your bloodstream. You get these little infections, you get this inflammatory thing, the whole thing blows up. My neighbor died of this, by the way. So it's not a disease that's very rare. He got a surgery for hemorrhoids, and it killing him. This multisystem organ failure. And we watched it all unfold, and there's no stopping it. So this particular organism is very soothing. And so what they did is they cultured it, and they actually sell it on the market right now. It's called Culturelle. You can actually buy it. It's a yogurt. They decided to put it in yogurt instead of putting it in oatmeal. I think the oatmeal had more than just this in it, too, because it had these soluble fibers. That's the thing about oatmeal. Oatmeal is a rich source of goo. Soluble fibers, goo. I mean, it's gooey. So, all right. So let me go through the list here, and you give some of the details why this is particularly good. So it promotes the growth of other beneficial bacteria. It actually makes things that help the other bacteria grow better. They have the various, okay, I'm going to get into too much detail. Let me just keep it simple. It helps the growth of these. It inhibits the growth of pathogenic bacteria, helps maintain the barrier function, I said already, reduces insulin resistance, reduces inflammation, and can be purchased as an antibiotic. Let me go back. There's a ton of research about these. Let me just give you one of the big picture ones, and then I'll skip this slide. The organisms can be put into categories. One of the categories is Bacteroides. This is one you guys probably have never heard of. And Bacteroides turned out to be really important in measuring how the ecosystem as a whole is working. If the Bacteroides numbers get too high, it's associated with autoimmune disease and a bunch of diseases. The ones we talked about earlier, so I have to use my other hand. Yeah, be careful about this. So we have these big groups, but if you actually look at them as a whole, most of the organisms that live in us fall into two categories. They're either Bacteroides or the Firmicutes. And the Bacteroides need to be higher than the Firmicutes. If the Firmicutes go higher, then we get disease. And if the Bacteroides go too high, we get disease. You see how I did that? Too much is bad, too little is bad. It's got to be right in the middle. And so when we look at the organisms, because there's testing that we can do to figure out what the patterns are, one of the key things I look at is the ratio of Firmicutes to Bacteroides. Okay, now let's look at some of the individual players. E. coli. The reason why I picked E. coli, because this is the first bug I ever learned about as a kid. And it's in part of the normal flora. And what it does, the key thing is it makes vitamin K. And you notice it's the same list we just saw already. It inhibits the growth of the bacteria, maintains the gut barrier, produces short-chain fatty acids, reduces inflammation, da, 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 da. They all got that. They all share that in common. E. coli also has strains that are deadly. This hemolytic E. coli is one of those. So not all E. coli is good, but E. coli turns out to be, good. I wonder why it's so famous? Because it's not a particularly major constituent of the microbiota. It's a minor player. Okay, Bifidobacterium. This one's a bigger player. This one's super key. This one actually does help if you take it as a probiotic. The reason why is because the bacteria tend to layer up. It's not just a bunch of bacteria all mixed together. It doesn't work like that. There's bacteria, there's the lining of the colon or the lower part of the small intestine, and against that are organisms that set the base, and they set the tone, and everything grows based on them. If they're happy, then you got a good chance of getting a good microbiome. If they're not happy, then there's no chance. They're the foundation. That's what these guys are. And they live without oxygen. They don't need any oxygen. because there is no oxygen. Because the oxygen on the cell side, the cells sucked it all up, and the oxygen on the bacteria side, they're at the bottom, so they don't get any exposed to oxygen, so they're anaerobes is what they are. The reason why they're called bifidobacterium is because they bifurcate. See how they turn into these little Y things? They saw this in the microscope, and that's why they named it bifidobacterium. And what they do, again, is they make goo that feeds the other bacteria. Keep it simple. Goo. They're goo producers. And it really are important. So let me just say, yeah. And it's the same thing, same list of what we saw before. So they do the same thing. This one is interesting. Akkermansia mucinophilia. This one I hadn't heard of until, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. And it turns out to be another key player. This is like the bifidobacteria. It sets the tone for the other ones. Now, if you look at the research, it'll drive you crazy. Because if it gets too high, there's all these diseases. It gets too low, there's a whole bunch of more diseases. It's either too high or too low. It's all in disease. This is why it drives the researchers crazy. What do you do about it? Should we block it? Should we grow it? What should we do? And the consensus now is we need it. It needs to be there. It helps regulate the tension, the viscosity of the mucus. And if the mucus is too viscous, the microbiome doesn't work right. If it's too thin, it doesn't work right. And these guys help regulate that. The other thing about this one is they couldn't grow it. The reason why this one came up late, this wasn't discovered until, I don't know, the 60s or something like that, 70s. I mean, fairly recently compared to the other ones. And the reason why is because it won't grow. You can't grow it in a test tube. They can figure out how to do it. And eventually they did figure out. But right now they're not trying to grow these organisms in test tubes. What they're doing is they're running through an RNA or a DNA analysis machine where they take the little bits of RNA or DNA and they can identify them based on that. That's the new system. It's a PCR system, the same thing they used to find COVID. That same exact system, they're using it to find bacteria, to be able to figure out what things are. In the old days, they would just plate it, but we didn't have the technology to really had to be able to figure it out. That's the reason why we know there's thousands of organisms now, because they run them through these machines. Now, if you get thousands of these, how do you make head or tails of it? How do you figure things out? I'll show you. Right here. This is the testing that I use. This is Diagnostic Solutions. And this is an actual patient that I saw last year. And I'll show you page 1. Let me tell you a little bit about this lady. She's in her mid-60s. She got rheumatoid arthritis. And she aches. And so I knew that there's a connection between rheumatoid arthritis, or no, not new, no. There's a connection between rheumatoid arthritis and her gut. So I figured, well, let's run the test and figure out in what way is her gut broken. This page here is pathogens. This is a stool test, a normal stool test. If you go to the hospital and they order a stool test, this is what they order right here. They are looking for these. And notice, she has none, not a single one. So she passes. The stool test, if she went and got a stool test, she'd pass. You look, you have nothing. You're good. You don't have any salmonella. You don't have any weird E. coli. You don't have C. diff. You don't have whatever. You have nothing. You're good. You have great guts. No, wrong. Okay, so this one we're looking at mostly good bacteria. They do the Helicobacter. This is the one that causes ulcers in your stomach. But we're looking down here at what's going on. And what we can see is the Bacteroides firmicutes ratio is skewed. And she has no Akkermansia at all. Her E. coli is also low, but 0 Akkermansia. This is suspicious. I'm thinking, ooh, we got a problem here. And so she's got, these are not pathogenic bacteria. They're normal bacteria, but they've overgrown. So she's got a Morganella infection and she's got a strep infection. Now, a little bit of strep is normal, a little bit of Morganella is normal if it's greater than this number here. And we can see that this one is factor 10 over it. This one, what is this? A factor of 1,000. She has 1,000% more Morganella than she should. And then the key thing is this. This shows me what's going wrong here. I told you the antibodies are too high in rheumatoid arthritis, and she pegged it. You should run between 500 and 2,000 on the secretory IgA. This is kind of an antibody, and she's over 6,000. And I checked her for this anti-gliadin antibody. Gliadin is a protein in wheat. Now, you think gluten is the protein we're looking for. Now, the relationship with gluten is weak. The relationship with gliadin is much better. So if you want to check and see somebody has a wheat sensitivity, you want to check this gliadin. The best test there is secretory IgA to gliadin. And I ran that test and she pegged it. She was so high that the test doesn't go any higher. This is her problem right here. She's got she's got these infections and she's got a severe reaction to wheat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take her off of wheat. I'm going to put her on an anti-inflammatory. I'm going to have her take Akkermansia, and I'm going to give her the lecture about how you have to be a gardener. And she took it to heart. And then 2 months later, she was great. She has no symptoms. Everything's fine. Everything's working hunky-dory. Everything's going, you know, in terms of as far as she's concerned, she's back to living her normal life. 2 months. It didn't happen in a day. It didn't happen in a week. It took a while. But slowly but surely, we got her back out of it. I checked her recently, and she's still got elevated antibodies. The antibodies are still high. She wants to go back to eat wheat again. I told her she can't, which is a drag. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. Okay, let's look at the next one. This is a nice lady. Oh, did it go the right way? Yeah. This is a nice lady who retired recently from the university. She's a high-powered administrator kind of type here. And she was tired. And so I ran the test. I ran a whole bunch of tests. This is one of the tests I ran. And what we see with her, the main thing here is the previous test was fine. That is the pathogen test she had any problems with. But she's got an overgrowth of both the Bacteroides and the Firmicutes. She's got an overgrowth. Here's what it is. And we can see that she's got Morganella again, staph. She's got strep. She's got fusiform bacteria. She's also got some parasites. She's got this Dientamoeba fragilis, and but anyways, parasite stuff. And then the antibodies in her case are appointed, let me hit the right button, are low. She's not high. She's opposite of that of the patient. Okay, when we're looking at all this, when I see this, I see exactly what's going on at a glance because I've seen so many of these. This lady, it's stress. It's stress is what it is. That's what put her into this. So, and I'll show you why. Let's do the next slide. Oh, yeah, we have to talk about how to fix it. We're in the fix phase. These microbiota needs food, water, warmth, space, the correct pH, osmotic balance, time, But this is what I want to talk about right here, this slide. So I have this back up here just to kind of remind me, but let me do it with my hands again. When people feel stress is a bad word. It's not actually what they're feeling. What it is fear. It's fear is what it is. Now, we don't say fear. We say they're worrying, or they feel apprehension, or they feel dread, or they feel whatever. There's a zillion anxiety. They have a zillion words for this. But all of this is fear. It's all flavors of fear. And what happens when your brain, in its wisdom, recognizes that you're in a threatening situation, it prepares you for action. What it does is it increases blood flow to your muscles and your heart and your brain. It increases your blood pressure, increases your blood sugars. It does all these changes so that when the time comes, you could look around on the ground and find a stick and pick it up and whack whatever is threatening you. Because that is what assumes how we're going to solve the problem. And I want to tell you, back in the old days, it was a solution. We could solve nearly every problem we ever had with a stick. Bam, bam, bam. Problem solved, right? And on that, you feel good. You feel powerful. Like, I can take my stick and bam, whack it away. Don't do that. Nowadays, it'll end you up in jail. So what do you do now? You breathe deep. You get it together. You write an email. You have a conversation. And those stress chemicals continue to circulate through your body. Now, if you take vigorous physical action, you are using those stress chemicals up. They are doing the full circuit. They're coming around to your adrenal gland, because that's where they originated, and they're getting pulled back in because we're going to need them again later. So as circulation improves, the stress response resolves. Now, let's go back to a point I skipped over. You get an increase of blood to your muscles, your heart, and your brain. Huh? Where's that blood coming from? Venture any guess? mean, not making more. I mean, you only have a certain amount. So whatever, someplace getting it more, someplace getting it less. I'm serious with a heart attack. Where's it coming from? Where's the blood coming from? Yes, that's correct. Come from your gut. Now, how's that work exactly? There's these sphincters on your blood vessels, and they go whoop, and they tighten up. And less blood goes to your gut. And more blood goes everywhere else. Now, is this a bad thing? No. Because if there is a bear chasing you, right, or saber-toothed tiger at the opening of your cave, no, you don't really care much about digesting your herbs and berries, right? You want to have a big stick, you want to whack that thing and chase it away. It's much more important for you to survive than it is for you to digest anything. And then later, once you're calmed down and you're telling the story around the campfire, then you got plenty of time to digest. No, this is not broken. This is working correctly, except for not in our modern society, is it? You know why? Because we don't get a bear once a month or once a season. We get a bear every day. That's what this lady, the nice lady who worked here at this university, she was stressed because she was being threatened. You know, she's a nice lady working with nice people, but nonetheless, there was a threat every day, every day, every day. Every day, her body sent less blood to her digestive system. And what did that do to her digestive system? It weakened it. Because all the things I told you about, the acid production, the bile production, the digestive enzymes, the squishiness, all that runs on blood. It needs blood. It requires blood to function. Without blood, it does not work. And so she didn't have enough blood to run her digestive system. And so things were rotting. This is rot. I showed you the thing where all the bacteria were high. The two main categories of bacteria, both are pegged over on the high side because she has an abundance of leftovers that are coming down into her system. So what I told her, I said, look, you got too much stress. Now here's the thing. No one yet, ever, in 30 years of me practicing, has ever got better by me saying, you should relax. Because you know what that does? It gives them a new thing to worry about. That's worse than before. No, it's just stupid. I'm going to do it. What I say is, you need to exercise. When you feel threatened, at your earliest convenience, you need to get up and do something physical. I had a nice lady who came to see me for, she had a vaginosis. And I told her right off the bat, I said, look, I'm not a vaginosis doctor. I don't even have one of those GYN tables. She says, so you're in the wrong office. She says, no, I'm not. I'm in the right office. You're my fourth doctor, and my neighbor told me I needed to come here. I said, well, I'm on the case. All right, tell me your story. And she was in the middle of a divorce, and the stress was really bad, and she had these teenage kids, and everything was just falling apart. And I said, okay, I get it. I see why it's happening here. You got too much stress. And so what I told her to do is buy a punching bag, one of those heavy bags. And she had a teenager. She hung it up in her living room because the only place she could, and it came with free punching gloves. And I told her, you need to take boxing lessons. She would not do boxing lessons. What she did is she got online and taught herself to box online. And she knew all the things, the right position, you got the jabs, and the whatever from the side, and uppercut, and the way your feet do, and the whole thing, and she learned to box. And her vaginosis went away. Cured her with a boxing bag, right? But you see the logic. Now, admittedly, I ran the test, and I gave her some probiotics and did some other stuff, and we'll talk about here. But we had to fix her guts, but that's the reason why she was going bad. Same as this lady here. Okay, so what we see on this one is decreased digestive system activity. This is the key one. Adrenal glands were all these things. Catecholamines are the name of the stress chemicals that are coming out. Cortisol is another one. And then this is the things that are happening. High blood pressure, blood sugar's going up, all that stuff. Okay, so this is a picture of what I was talking about earlier. This is the cells that line the digestive system. And these ones are normal. See, this is a little tight junction. Nothing can get through here. It's a little glue point. Here the tight junction is broken, and see the bacteria starting to go through. Here's one that's getting into the bloodstream. This is guts with all the bacteria and the food and all that stuff. Poop is over here. And this is bloodstream, immune cells, all this stuff. And then all these chemicals are chemicals that are generated when you got this dysbiosis. Quinolinic acid is related to vitamin B3, and the levels, this is driving crazy. If the levels get too high, then you get anxiety. If the levels get too low, then you get anxiety. You're screwed both ways. And this kyurenic acid, same story. This is related to tryptophan. So tryptophan converts into serotonin. So there's way more serotonin in your digestive system. 90% of serotonin in your body, that's a substance in your brain that makes you feel calm and peaceful. There's way more in your digestive system than there is in your brain. And it's because of this whole system here. When things go cattywampus, the tryptophan metabolism goes cattywampus. The blood-brain barrier gets loose, neuroinflammation goes up, the vagus nerve gets irritable, and there's a whole cascade of problems. This is a picture, it's stress and disease, but this is a picture of basically every disease I showed you earlier. I told you I was getting ahead of myself. That whole little lecture I was supposed to do on this slide. I'm just reminding you, I gave that lecture before. If your guts go bad, everything else goes bad. That's what's here. Okay, microbiome and stress. Let me do a little side thing. Normally, in a talk like this, in my experience, what the doctor does, they'll go and they'll do a research review. And I was so tempted to do a research review and say, you know, Johnson and Smith from the University of Minnesota did research, and this is what they found, and what they found, and what they found. I would bore you guys to tears. I wouldn't actually get to say what I wanted to say. But I had to bring a little of that in, and that's what we're looking at here. These are some of my favorite articles that talk about how all this works. If you guys get access to this later and you have a scientific bent, you can look all this stuff up and actually get it. This was just one of my favorite pictures or whatever, diagrams of the process. Now, the thing, if you look at this one, you're a little put back on your heels because you think, what does all this mean? This seems complicated. How does this actually work? Yeah, that's the point. It's really complicated. And everything works together in a net. And so here's the thing. If you get anxious, it throws up your gut bacteria. If your gut bacteria get thrown off, it makes you anxious. So what is it? Is it the gut bacteria or is it the anxiety? The answer is yes. So the trick of me as a doctor, not reading research, but actually sitting across somebody is trying to figure out where's the entry point into their case. What can we do? I can't tell them to relax. That's stupid. I got to figure out something that they can actually do in real life to turn this around. And so one of the things you can do is you can become a gardener for your guts and start thinking about things that you could take, things that you can do, things that you can engage in that result in better digestion. Are you guys getting excited, right? You think, what's he going to tell me? I'm all ready to do this thing because I got 3 of these diseases on this list already, and I want to be able to treat them. Okay, be patient. We'll come there. I'm sorry, this is the same exact slide we just saw before, just organized in different ways. So it's your immune system, it's a vagus nerve, it's an endocrine system. I can explain more of these details. I kind of got a feeling I'm running out of time. Yeah, let me skip through this. We're going to get to how you treat this thing. And I've already been telling you how to do it. Let me just go through it. So we want to improve the microbial environment. That's how we treat it. So how do we do that? We want to feed the beneficial microbiome. We want to increase soluble fiber because that's what they live on. We want to decrease unabsorbed nutrients. That's a key one. So how do we fix it? We want to have healthy bacteria and not bad bacteria. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that there's no leftovers. No leftovers. We don't want to send anything undigested other than fiber down in the lower intestine. Because if you feed them, they'll come. You don't have to do anything. Those come on their own accord. So we don't want to feed them. So you want to get rid of those bad bacteria. All you need to do is starve them out. Now, other doctors will tell you need to take antibiotics, and they want to take your rifampin, and they want to do a bunch of other stuff, and they're full of crap. I'm sorry. The way to do it is not do all that stuff because it doesn't work. SIBO's easy to fix. Quit feeding the SIBO. Okay, now, thank you, Dr. Luper. How do I do that exactly? You tell me. How do you do that? How can you make sure that there's no leftover food? Because you can't feel it. You can't tell. So you're just going to have to invent things. that are going to help decrease or eliminate the amount of undigested food that gets to the lower intestine. Okay, think of an idea. Eat whole foods. Why whole foods? As opposed to unwhole foods? You're right. You were actually right. The thing is, I wouldn't say it that way. I would say avoid food that won't digest. So if it has preservatives in it, what do preservatives do? They block rotting. What is rotting? It's digestion. You're blocking digestion. Preservatives block digestion. That's what their purpose is. They don't say it like that, but I'm going to be clear. Preservatives block digestion. They decrease digestion. They make it more likely for undigested foods to get down the lower intestine. So avoid eating food with preservatives in it. Okay, another idea. Well, what about salt? Salt is a preservative, and if you get too much salt, it'll get in the way, and it won't digest as much. As a preservative, salt is less of a problem than some of these other ones, but salt still can be a problem. Okay, think of another one. So homemade yogurt's excellent because it's pre-digested. It's so easy to digest because the bugs have already had a go at it. It digests super easy. 30 hours, 30. It's an excellent food. It's one of the mainstays of my diet. You know, sometimes patients get clever. They say, "What do you eat, Dr. Luper?" I eat berries and yogurt and nuts every morning. I had it today.
How about I eat the jovial flour from Italy?
Easier to digest. Isn't that interesting? American flour is harder to digest. European flour is easier to digest.
I do it, but I can do this. The one from Italy. And then I make a sourdough. I have a sourdough.
Again, pre-digested.
A sourdough.
The organisms break the flour down, and it's easier to digest than it would be otherwise.
I eat it every day.
Okay, now you guys, these are good, but you're missing the big ones, the super big ones. Let me just help you. Okay, number one, chew your food. Chances you digesting it is going to be better if the pieces are smaller. Now, you don't have to chew your food. You can get a hammer and you can pound it to a pulp on the tabletop. That would work too. But you have these handy-dandy teeth that'll grind it up, right? So chew your food. Okay, what's another one? Cook it. Cook your food. When you cook it, you break it down. It's softer. It's easier to digest. Turns out cooked food is easier to digest than raw food. And you're going, whoa, Dr. Luper, I was with you until that one because I know that raw food has more nutrients than cooked food. And you are right, except for you can't get access to those nutrients. You ever actually visit someone who lives on a raw food diet? It's the most ground up food dinner I have ever had because they run everything through a blender or they mince it super fine because you can't get access to the food unless you break it down, if not chemically or thermically, you have to do it mechanically. You have to break the food down.
You like raw salad?
Well, I do like raw salads, but I can't live on raw salads because here's the thing. If you don't digest a salad completely, what happens? Meh, not much. Because the stuff that's left over, it's got so much fiber in it, it's not particularly bad. It doesn't really grow bad bacteria. You got leftover meat, no, you're screwed. Some of the worst things that your digestive system can ever make is going to be made out of leftover protein. Let me think. Cadaverine. That doesn't sound good, does it? That's a thing. That's what happens when you don't digest your meat. What's the other one? Putrescine. Those are real names of real stuff that your body makes. Talk about toxins. Remember I told you the fatty liver story? These are toxins that are generated from you not digesting your food completely. Okay, now look, there's a bunch of other stuff you could do too, and you guys know it already. What about, Dr. Luper, what if I took digestive enzymes? Bingo, that'll work. In the old days, that's what I mostly did, is put people on digestive enzymes. But I don't know, I hate pills. Can we do this without pills? Let's do the non-pill approach, if we can. Now, my number one favorite, I know there's a few patients I have in here, you guys know this already, but my number one favorite to strengthen people's digestive system is bitters. Bitters are fabulous. Bitters are amazing. Now, what bitters do is bitters are herbs that taste bitter. And the taste of bitter is the taste of poison. Because if you go and you pull poison leaves off the bushes that are growing outside and you chew them, they will taste bitter because they have, in fact, poisons in them. So we have an inbuilt reflex that if we taste bitter, our body assumes that we have just eaten poison for some good reason, from a plant, because it's not very poisonous, and so we're going to get some good out of it. And so what it's going to do is its very best to break that thing down, so it takes the dial of digestion and whoop, turns it up. And you get a stronger digestive system based on the exposure to bitters. So bitters are fabulous to elicit that reflex, get your digestive system to work stronger, and it is a mainstay in my practice. Larry. So those are excellent as well. What they're excellent for is they're pre-digested, and they also have an abundance of beneficial bacteria that kind of help set the tone for the microbiome. Remember, the microbiome needs a certain kind of pH, and those foods tend to be acidic, and it tends to help our digestive system. Our microbiome needs to have an abundance of bacteria that compete with and block out the pathogenic bacteria. Also, what we want to do is we want to stimulate our digestive system, and they're mildly stimulatory. Now, the acid actually is a digestive system enhancer. Lots of people, it's another one we can do, is we could take a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar with every meal. Now, that works great if you're low of acid, which most everybody is, and it sucks if you're high in acid, which a few people are. So that is a two-edged sword, that one. And lots of people do it, and they swear by it, and I don't think it's the best way to do it. I don't put my patients on acid unless they need it. I'm more likely to put them on baking soda because people have too much acid in their system more commonly than they have too much alkaline in their system. Okay? So, but you're getting the gist of this thing. And you're exactly right. You said you need to eat whole foods. The main thing about whole foods is in feeding the bacteria. They need something to eat so that they can grow. And so if you eat whole foods tend to have lots of fiber in them. And fruits and vegetables are high in fiber generally. And not only that, you don't want to have just like one kind of fiber. You want to have a variety of different kinds of fiber. So the other thing I tell my patients, my advanced patients who are getting to perfection, is I say, I want you to eat 30 different fruits and vegetables a week. And it sounds like a lot, but it's easier than it seems. You have to think about when you go shopping what to put in your cart. Onions count, and potatoes, and broccoli, and asparagus, and they're having that special on purple beets and whatever. You throw all that stuff in, and then you just got to eat stir fries or mix stuff up and just go for a variety. Now, what you're doing in that case is you're feeding all those little micropopulations. You're not just feeding the main guys. I told you, you're feeding the other guys as well. And you're feeding them on the stuff that you can't digest because you don't have the enzymes. It's not like you're weak. It's just even at the peak of your life, you never could digest it. And you don't have to digest it because these guys need fiber. I'm going to illustrate this very strongly by saying, okay, look at little babies. And they're living on milk. I mean, what fiber's in milk? Doesn't have any fiber in it, right? Talk about low fiber diet. How do they even get started? No, au contraire. Milk is full of fiber. Trippy. On purpose. This really confused researchers. They were like, why is this fiber in mother's milk? Because we don't have the digestive enzymes to break it down. And yet our body, mothers, their bodies, goes through the time and energy to generate these fructooligosaccharides, which is a kind of fiber, that go into milk. I mean, a lot of it. It wasn't like a little bit. I mean, significant amount of this stuff. And then the baby doesn't have the enzymes to even break down. It's not getting any calories from it whatsoever. What the heck is that all about? And you think for a second, clear as a bell what that's about. The mom is feeding the microbiome, creating a microbiome, creating food. And if you feed them, then you get them. They will come. That is the thing. So you may think, well, Dr. Luper, what probiotic do you like it? Almost none. I rarely use a probiotic. I use Akkermansia if they don't have any because I want to make sure they have some. Other than that, I hardly ever use a probiotic because it's not really help. Nobody gets better in probiotic. Let me make it simple. Okay, I'll wind this all up. There's a concoction, I wish I could give you the formula, I'll just tell you, that you can drink every day that just does more to help build up your microbiota than anything else. So I don't give people probiotics. What I do is I have them drink fiber. So what we do is, the formula is simple. You get a mason jar with a lid or a shaker bottle, 16 ounce, and you put in 2 tablespoons of chia seeds, 4 ounces of purple juice. That's juice that has the color purple. The anthocyanins are what we're looking for. Pomegranate will work fine. And then you put in 3/4 water. So 12 ounces water, 4 ounces juice. Give it a shake. Let it sit and soak for a while in the refrigerator, and then like overnight. And then the next morning, drink the whole thing in that day. Drinking all of it in one go is too much, but you can like drink half now and half later. That's the way to do it. Now, at this point, I don't actually do that anymore. I did it for years. What I do now is I take 2 tablespoons of chia seeds and then 1 tablespoon of flax seeds, and I mix it in with my yogurt and berries, and I do it that way. And I suffer the seeds in my teeth. I have to pick them out every day.
Would you eat those berries, like Alaskan blueberries and raspberries? Would you cook them, or would you eat them raw?
I would eat them raw. Yeah, berries are easy to digest inherently, and so I just eat them raw. What I actually do is I'll get the Alaska berries if I can, but then you have to go out and pick them. I don't always have the time. Mostly what I do is I get bags of berries at Costco, and then I nuke them for a minute, which softens them up so that I can mix them in with the yogurt and it doesn't congeal into a solid mass. I don't actually heat them, because if you heat them, you're killing them. What I do is I just thaw them a little bit. Okay, I'll take some questions now. Mike, you've been very patient with this thing. Okay, go ahead. Questions? Excellently. Mushrooms are excellent. Mushrooms have constituents in them that regulate our immune systems, and it works very well. It's real. Now, the thing I'm always looking for is if I do something and then they come back, I say, how you doing? And if they say, meh, about the same, forget it. I ain't doing that. That's probiotics. Nobody ever got better. I quit doing it. But I give a mushroom, how do you feel? I feel better. My energy's better. I feel good. Woohoo! We're doing more mushroom. Now the question is, what mushroom? It turns out all, but some are better than others. The ones that smell more mushroomy, those are the best. My personal favorite is reishi mushroom, otherwise known as Ganoderma, and cordyceps. Cordyceps is the mushroom that grows out of the little ant heads, turns them into ant zombies. That's another talk. That's super interesting mushroom. Okay, other questions? Gentian is a classic bitter. That's the one that they use to make old fashions out of. It's Angostura bitters you can get at the grocery store. Yeah, those are bitters. So what I like to use is a combination of Mahonia. It's got Artemisia, 2 kinds of Artemisia in it. That's wormwood. Mahonia is Oregon grape. There's a zillion of them. Honestly, that's an excellent question. And again, I could go on and on about it. I would stick with if you just want to get bitters, either you got to come to me and get bitters. I use a concoction called Purge the Whirl, and it's fabulous. It works beautifully. And again, I don't have time to give the story behind it. If you go to the grocery store, you just buy bitters. Payshell's makes a bitter. And the thing about bitters is a cocktail was originally invented to help people with their health. It was basically doing a shot of bitters, except for nobody wanted to take bitters because they taste horrible. They're really just absolutely horrible. And so they decided if they mix it with a shot of bourbon, it made it more palatable. But it was still horrible. So then they decided it's going to be better if we could put some little simple syrup in there, an orange slice, and a couple maraschino cherries. Woohoo! Now we're talking. It turns out the more stuff you put in like that, the less medicinal it is. But originally, it was in fact medicinal. An old-fashioned is in fact, for real, the first cocktail ever invented, and it was for our health. So like that. So if you do ever come across like an old-fashioned, you could say, hey, Dr. Luper said this is for my health. But they take the bitters bottle and they kind of wave it over it, and they don't actually put the bitters in. You got to go shake, 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 right? And make it taste bitter, where it's got that bitter hit to it. And less maraschino cherries. Okay, Mike, are we done?
Out of respect for time, could I, with this interest, could I publicly ask you to come back next year?
I'll come back.